Today we're gonna describe triangles. We said the first one here. Of course, you know, for each triangle we have three sides. In the first case here we have three sides. All of them are equal in length. You can notice that we have 3 centimeters, 3 centimeters, and 3 centimeters. If you find that we have three line segments in a triangle and all of them are equal in length, so you would say this triangle is equilateral triangle. The second case, we have here only two sides are equal in length. You can find 5 and 5, and of course 2 is different from them. So this triangle is called isosceles triangle. The third one, we have 3, 4, and 5. 3, 4, and 5. Of course, all of them are different in lengths, so it's scaling triangle. No need to memorize the names now. Just tell me how many sides are equal in length. This is according to the side length. If you talk about the angles, here we have right angle. Since we have right angle triangle, so we have to say it's right triangle. The second case, all of them are acute angles inside. If you remember the acute angle, less than 90. So this is acute triangle. The last case, we have one obtuse triangle. So we have to say it's obtuse triangle. One obtuse angle inside. And of course, these two angles are acute. So this one acute, and this one is obtuse angle. So this is obtuse triangle. Okay, now let's learn more. How can we classify triangles? How can we describe triangles?
Hi, welcome to Math Antics. In this geometry lesson, we're going to learn all about triangles. You may remember from the lesson about polygons that triangles are special polygons that always have 3 sides and 3 angles. And that's what the word triangle means. Tri means 3, and angles means angles. Okay, that's easy enough. 3 sides, 3 angles. But what else is there to know about triangles? Well, for starters, we're going to learn how to classify triangles. Ooh, such a classy triangle. But seriously, there's 2 different ways to classify or organize triangles. They can be classified by their sides, and they can be classified by their angles. Let's start by classifying triangles by their angles, since we've already learned a lot about angles in the previous videos. You may remember from our first video about angles that there's 3 types of angles. There's right angles, acute angles, and obtuse angles. Well, watch what happens if we use a third line in each of these angles to form closed shapes. Aha! Triangles. And can you guess what these 3 different kinds of triangles are called? Yep. The one made from the right angle is called a right triangle. The one made from the acute angle is called an acute triangle. And the one made from the obtuse angle is called an obtuse triangle. So that's simple enough. But notice that for each of our 3 triangles, the new angles that were formed when we closed the shapes are all acute angles. So triangles always have at least 2 acute angles. And it's the other angle that determines what type it is. That's important to know so you don't get tricked. For any given triangle, just because you see one acute angle, that doesn't mean it's an acute triangle. You have to look at all the angles to tell if it's an acute triangle. The situation's easier with right and obtuse triangles because you can only have one right or obtuse angle per triangle. So as soon as you spot one of those kinds of angles, you know what type of triangle you have. All right then, classifying triangles by angles is pretty simple, but we can also classify triangles by their sides. If we pay close attention to the length of each side of a triangle, we can see that there's 3 possibilities. First of all, if all 3 sides of a triangle are exactly the same length, then we call it an equilateral triangle. It's kind of a long word, but it's easy to remember because it sounds like it has the word equal in it. To see the second possibility, let's take the top vertice of our equilateral triangle and move it up like this. See what happened? Two of the triangle's sides got stretched by the same amount, but the bottom side remained the same. Now we have a triangle that has only two equal sides, and that's called an isosceles triangle. That's a long word too. The best way to remember that is to look at an isosceles triangle and say its name 20 times as fast as you can. And finally, to see the third possibility, let's move that same top vertice again, but this time to the left. Now, all the sides are different lengths. This type of triangle is called a scalene triangle. So those are the three possibilities when classifying triangles by their sides. Equilateral triangles have three equal sides. Isosceles triangles have only two equal sides. And scalene triangles have no equal sides. That way was pretty easy too. The hardest part is just remembering the names. And now that you know both ways to classify triangles, let's see how you can use them together. Yep, you can use them both at the same time. If you classify triangles both by their angles and by their sides, it turns out that there's several possible combinations. To see what I mean, let's list the three classifications by sides, scalene, isosceles, and equilateral, and the three classifications by angle, right, acute, and obtuse. A scalene triangle can also be a right triangle, like this one. And a scalene triangle can also be either an obtuse or an acute triangle. In the same way, an isosceles triangle can also be acute, like this one, or obtuse, like this one. And in one special case, an isosceles triangle can also be a right triangle, like so. But things are different when it comes to an equilateral triangle. An equilateral triangle is always an acute triangle. Because all three sides are exactly the same, all three angles must also be exactly the same. And since we can't have more than one right angle in a triangle, or more than one obtuse angle, all the angles in an equilateral triangle must